Hey, FlimsyLunchTray here, and welcome to World of Warships. And today I have probably a bit of a dicey topic here in the WoW's community, and it's something to which this video I've actually been sitting on since probably last fall, end of last year, something like that. And it's probably, well, besides wargaming, making wargaming dumb decisions, in terms of the gameplay, which I think it does also reflect back onto wargaming. Something that that frustrates me the most about World of Warships is blowout matches. So this video is oriented as a discussion time. Like, it'd be like, hey, let's like talk about this in the World of Warships forums, where players can like talk and discuss things. And then wargaming's like, we value your feedback and community input, but we're gonna nuke those. So, the YouTube video it is. Never change wargaming. Yeah, with that being said, this is a discussion video. I would love to have interactions with all of you in the comments below in response of why are we just seeing so many more blowout matches here in World of Warships, particularly in 2023, but even much more so going into 2024. I started playing World of Warships in the fall of 2019, and it was really in 2023, I would say, is when I just really noticed the uptick in blowout matches, like this video that you're going to see, and you'll find out pretty quick which team is going to have the blowout. And then also going into 2024, I was actually playing with my clan commander last night, and he's been playing the game before even myself. He's playing the game a really long time, and I know he'll probably get some feedback down below at Doom Beagle. And we were just talking about, me and him have had this discussion probably going on for the last, I don't know, month or so. But like, especially World of Warships weekend, which is where you're going to see even more blowouts during the weekend versus the weekdays, where you just see that much more of an increase of blowout matches. And like how I lost my train of thought there, but basically how, like, if you're grinding a ship that's like just meh, like, don't even think about doing that on the weekends. Like, I remember when I first started playing World of Warships, even in 2020, 2021, and in 2022, I think to a certain extent, I could play a meh ship and you wouldn't get those blowout matches. Where now when you're playing World of Warships, it doesn't really feel like, I would say at times in randoms battles, particularly with the, let's say, tier 8 to super ship, to tier 11, that you really can't just have a per se enjoyable game at times unless you're taking a carry ship. Like, if you're not, like, for example, like I'm playing Schultz this past weekend, which isn't an amazing destroyer, tier 9 German destroyer leading up to the Elbing, and that ship is, to me, honestly, is very frustrating to play. I don't like it, so I just free XP'd and got the Elbing, or I'm about to buy the Elbing. But it's like, I can't play ships that are just like meh or okay, like mid. Like, they're not great and they're not terrible, without just expecting that I have to carry a team. And so, like, even like in this battle, like Salem is one of my best, among my best heavy cruisers in the game that I have a really good play status in. And still, as our team just absolutely suicides, like, there's just nothing you can do in this situation. So I just want to pop off a few reasons of kind of like my thoughts. These are just my opinions. Please do not get upset with me. They're just my opinions. We're going to discuss. You can freely disagree with me. Give some critical feedback or critiques if you think, actually, maybe Flimsy, it's this. I'll have a loving conversation with you in the comments, but just don't be a jerk, okay? Or with other people. I don't like that happening in the comments. So I think for me, what I have noticed, since being a player in the fall of 2019 and now going into almost 5 years of playing World of Warships, wow, that's crazy, is just that we've had a lot of veteran players leave the game. A lot of players who knew how the game worked, had a lot of experience with the game, and a lot of them have just seemed to have left the game. Like, we've kind of had this hollowing out of experienced players in World of Warships, where I would say just even within the last few years alone, I mean, there's always this intake of newer players, and I think that's been somewhat, for a while it was balanced. You had your experienced players, and your even newer players were becoming more experienced players, and then as time elapses, it's kind of like the brain drain, where it feels like we're just losing so many more experienced players, and that's outpacing the newer players that have come into the game. That's just a thought, a thesis that I have, how to necessarily pull up the receipts to show that per se. I mean, you can look at the player numbers, which it's not like it's amazing in terms of like that you could really see that, but I think there's a lot of, I think that's something you actually might maybe be able to point to. I don't know. I'd have to go look to see if that can be revealed. I mean, I was watching a streamer the other day. I think this guy's actually in the 07 clan. He was joining in on Maltese Night Stream, and he was like, "Wait, what's this ship? What's that ship?" Like he's a super experienced player, but he hasn't played the game in like a really long time, or at least multiple updates. So you just have a lot of veteran players. I think, one, they've left the game, two, they've lost interest, and they really come back and play the game. You could also probably, some things to tie to the players leaving the game, or the more experienced players in the game. I mean, you could talk about submarines. I mean, there's just a lot of people who were frustrated about submarines and just leaving the game. Some left the game because of the more and more powerful aircraft carriers that have come into the game. Then you've got more of the gimmick buttons that we're seeing here in World of Warships, with like the alternative firing mode, you know, sprinkle some magic pixie dust, you know, just in terms of the other mechanics in the games, like, you know, just not even having a carrier being allowed to detonate, or a submarine being allowed to detonate. Wargaming's, I mean, since I started playing, like, the monetization that Wargaming has done just within the last almost 5 years of me playing the game, like, I can tell you, like, there is a difference in terms of my player experience when I first started playing the game to where I see Wargaming heavily monetizing the game. And so, like, I could reference the Missouri whole shebang. I mean, you've got more and more the loot crates, and more them heavily monetizing, introducing new tech tree lines with early access. That used to not be a thing, right? Then you have players who are spending money into the game when they can just get the ship for free later. Of course, there's some players who can easily do that, whether they're wealthy, this, that, and the other. But there's been kind of a, I think I noticed it even in the, I think it was the fall of last year, there just was like, particularly, I play mainly on the North America server, even though I live in Europe. I do play some on the European server. But there's kind of this almost disgust, I would say, among North American players, where we're very turned off when we feel like so much of the game or certain things just get heavily monetized, and that kind of just turns us away. That, generally speaking, I'm not, that might not, you might be another North American and it might not actually bother you. You might be completely fine to it. I'm just saying, like, I was actually engaging with some other players and we were talking about this. And then, of course, you know, maybe it even extends all the way, you know, we can talk about the community contributor exodus. You could talk about the treatment of Little White Mouse in Chobetsu, I think was their name. I don't know if they also went, if they went, sorry, not she, but if they went for short by just Chobi. I can't recall. You know, and then you have just seeing how Wargaming has treated their community contributors. I mean, you can even throw Daniel Rusev in that. I think he's probably the last one where you kind of had a little bit of a small, like, upheaval in the community about how they were treated, how he was treated with, yeah, it was a difficult time for him, where he was excited to do, like, kind of this partnership with Wargaming for players and getting some rewards, but then the company, that third-party company that Wargaming hired, didn't know there was a miscommunication that they didn't actually understand he was a community contributor, because they're not allowed to do that because he was a community contributor. So that was like a bit of a thing with that. So I think some of the community managers in Wargaming or in World of Warships helped resolve that in a good way. So that was nice to see. But it's just really, it's difficult when you see, in one hand, how Wargaming treats or has treated the community contributors, and just sometimes what seems like there's this very large gap in terms of what the players think versus what Wargaming thinks and perceives on things, where, you know, they've nuked a lot of the feedback, and then the Discord server, like, I'm not even in the World of Warships Discord server for several reasons. But then, I mean, I have friends that are in it, and they just talk about sometimes, like, the crap show that's in there, or, you know, you can visibly see things that are pretty heavily downvoted, or also the, what do you call it, censorship, which they can exercise quite quickly there. But I would say, you know, one of the things going back to the topic focus of this video, is kind of went down a dark rabbit hole, is just, why are we seeing so many more blowouts here in World of Warships versus, you know, just a few years ago? And I think primarily that's just, we've lost a lot of experienced players, we've lost a lot of veteran players in the game, whether they completely uninstalled the game and left, or they're just like, they barely log on in the game and play anymore. And then kind of, I guess, trickling down into the reasons why have we lost a lot of the experience and the veteran players in the game. And that was kind of me talking about subs, maybe CVs, maybe gimmick buttons, monetization, community contributor exodus, seeing how Wargaming has treated past community contributors, which I will say, unless something just happened that I missed, or it's pending to happen very soon, I don't really feel like Wargaming has had much of a public relations dumpster fire as of recently. So that's good, at least. Like, you don't want that, right? Because I feel like the last thing was kind of the Daniel Russo thing, unless I'm forgetting something else. But yeah, it's just, I think after a while, I think players just get tired of it, you know, and so they just start leaving the game. And maybe you could say, well, Flimsy, you have that. I mean, any game can be similar to that, where you have that happening on a somewhat regular basis. True, but I think compared to, in my almost 5 years of playing the game, you know, where you can visibly see the shift. Like, something has happened that is pushing players away from the game, in terms of just, let me rephrase that, pushing your experienced and more veteran players away from the game, where they're losing interest in the game. And then, like, okay, well then why is that? Why do we see that happening? You know, if these blowout matches are happening, there is a root cause towards that. So yeah, so it doesn't feel like the matches are really, like, not that they're meant to necessarily be balanced, because there's an argument like, oh, you should go for the most balanced matchmaking as possible, divide the players up, where you have equal amount of, like, Unicum, great players, good players, average players. I don't remember how it goes. What's the next category beneath that? Like, try to distribute it so the win rate is as balanced as possible. So maybe it's like, all said and done, both teams have about 48% win rate. But then you get perhaps a lot of status quo matches, where you don't have kind of like those, well, let's say you have a 45% stacked against a 48%, and then, like, those fewer players can try to help make the game shine, or, like, carrying the match, which leads to more perhaps diversive gameplay. That's just one argument that I've heard, and I understand that argument. I think Flambas talked about that some time ago. I'm referencing that from, let's say, a year or 2 years ago. I don't know. So it's very difficult. And so again, as I want to wrap this video up, I don't want to make it any longer than it needs to be. This is a discussion video, discussion time. I'm really curious to know your thoughts on why are we seeing more blowout matches here in World of Warships. I see it on NA, I see it on EU. I don't really play so much on the Asian server, very, very little there, primarily NA than EU. So I'm just interested, whether you're a current player, you're a new player, you are a player who no longer plays the game. Let's have a chat, since we can't do it on the World of Warships forum, since that got nuked. Yeah, so be respectful in the comments. This is just my opinion. just my opinion, just my thoughts, just thinking out loud. So let's think out loud together. So with that being said, one of my most frustrating things about playing this game is blowout matches. If you liked today's video, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't, give it a thumbs down. Subscribe if you do want to see more. If you're subscribed, thanks so much. I appreciate it. And thank you to my Patreon supporters. And until next time, take care.